How dare you speak to me like that? I demand you be removed from this flight.
What would you do if the seat you paid thousands of dollars for was taken right in front of you, and every single person around you silently agreed that it was never yours to begin with? Emily Carter didn't look like someone who belonged in first class, not today. The camera would have caught her from behind first, hoodie pulled up halfway, a worn black backpack slung over one shoulder, moving through JFK Terminal 4 like she had nowhere urgent to be. No assistant, no driver, no polished heels clicking against the floor, just soft rubber soles and the low hum of rolling suitcases around her. People noticed her, not because she stood out, because she didn't. A man in a navy blazer glanced at her, then past her, dismissed. A woman in pearls tightened her handbag as Emily walked by, subtle, practiced. Not fear, judgment, the kind that happens in a split second and feels permanent. Emily saw it all. She always did. Her face didn't change, calm, neutral, but her eyes moved, slow, observing, taking inventory of a world that kept trying to categorize her before she even spoke. She stopped near gate B24, sat down, crossed one ankle over the other, pulled a paperback from her bag, Octavia Butler. The cover was creased, read more than once. Around her life rushed, announcements echoed overhead, delays, boarding groups, final calls. A toddler cried somewhere behind her. A businessman cursed under his breath into a phone. Emily didn't move. Inside her bag, beneath the book, beneath a slim laptop wrapped in a protective sleeve, sat something no one here could see. Not just files, not just code, a system, years of work, algorithms that could predict turbulence before it formed, data models that airlines were quietly bidding billions to access. She had built it from nothing. Late nights, cheap coffee, a dorm room that smelt like burnt circuits and ambition. Now it was worth more than most of the people in this terminal would make in a lifetime. And still, she looked like this. A boarding announcement cracked through the air. Global Skies Flight GS710 to London, now boarding first class and priority passengers. A shift in energy. People stood straighter, jackets adjusted, voices softened into polite confidence. Emily closed her book, slid it into her bag, stood. No rush, no hesitation. She stepped into the priority lane. The man in front of her turned slightly, looked her up and down. His jaw tightened just a fraction. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The message was already clear. You're in the wrong line. Emily held her boarding pass between two fingers, steady, unshaken. The gate agent scanned the passenger ahead of her with a bright, rehearsed smile. "Enjoy your flight, sir." Then her eyes landed on Emily. A pause, barely a second, but long enough. Her smile reset, professional, thinner now. "Ma'am, economy boarding will begin shortly." Not rude, not loud, but public enough. A couple behind Emily leaned slightly to the side, trying to see. A man exhaled, annoyed at the delay. Someone's phone camera tilted just a little higher. Emily didn't move, didn't blink. She lifted her boarding pass and placed it gently on the scanner. The machine beeped. Green. The agent froze. "First class," Emily said quietly. Not sharp, not defensive, just factual, like gravity, like something that didn't need permission to exist. The agent swallowed, forced a smile back onto her face. "Of course, my apologies, Miss Carter. Seat 1A, right this way." A ripple moved through the line, subtle but real. The man in the navy blazer looked again, longer this time. Emily stepped forward without acknowledging any of it, because she had lived this moment 1,000 times, and she knew something they didn't. This wasn't the worst part of her day, not even close. The first-class cabin felt like a different world the moment Emily stepped inside. The lighting softened, conversations dropped into low, controlled tones, leather seats stretched wide and untouched, each one a quiet declaration of status. The scent of champagne and warm towels lingered in the air like something expensive and invisible. Emily moved down the aisle without looking left or right, but she felt it, the shift. Heads turning, eyes narrowing, just slightly longer than necessary. 1A. She stopped. Someone was already sitting there. The woman didn't belong to the space quietly, she filled it. Late 50s, blonde hair sculpted into place, cream linen suit that looked pressed even in motion. A diamond bracelet caught the light every time she lifted her hand, which was often because she was talking, loud enough for 3 rows to hear, confident enough to assume they wanted to. And I told him if the house in the Hamptons doesn't face the water, then what's the point? A soft laugh followed from across the aisle, approval, agreement, the kind of social echo that builds power out of nothing. Emily glanced once at her boarding pass, 1A, then back at the woman. She waited, a beat, 2, enough time for a pause that never came. "Excuse me," Emily said, not loud, not apologetic, just clear. The woman stopped mid-sentence, turned slowly. Her eyes moved over Emily like a scanner searching for something that wasn't there. Recognition, status, worth. It found none. "Yes," the woman said, sharp, impatient, already irritated by the interruption. "I believe you're in my seat." Silence didn't fall all at once. It crept in, row by row, conversation by conversation, like people could feel something about to break. The woman looked at the boarding pass in Emily's hand, then back at her face, then down again, slower this time, taking in the hoodie, the sneakers, the absence of anything that signaled power in the language she understood. A small smile formed, not kind, not confused, certain. "Oh," she said lightly, waving her hand as if brushing away dust. "That must be a mistake. I always sit here." She turned back toward her audience, dismissal complete. Emily didn't move. "I don't think it's a mistake," she said, same tone, same calm. "Seat 1A, that's what I booked." Victoria's face shifted, the smile disappeared, replaced by something sharper, less polished. "Listen," she said, leaning forward now, voice dropping into something colder. "I've spent more on this airline this year than you probably have in your entire life." There it was, not just dismissal, judgment, final, absolute. And still Emily didn't move, not an inch, because this wasn't about a seat. And somewhere deep beneath the calm, something was beginning to rise. A flight attendant appeared before the silence could settle. He moved quickly, but not urgently. Late 20s, crisp uniform, smile trained to smooth problems before they became real. His name tag read Ryan Miller. "Is there a problem here, ladies?" he asked, voice light, controlled, already leaning toward resolution rather than truth. Victoria turned first, instantly softer, shoulders relaxed, a performance slipping into place. "Oh, thank goodness," she said, placing a hand over her chest. "This young woman is insisting that this is her seat. There's clearly been a mix-up, and she's being quite persistent." Persistent. Ryan's eyes flicked to Emily, quick, measuring, her hoodie, her stillness, the way she didn't rush to defend herself. "Ma'am, may I see your boarding pass?" he asked, voice light, controlled. Emily handed it to him without a word. Ryan scanned it, his eyes dropped to the small device in his hand, tapped once, twice, a pause. Yes, you are assigned to seat 1A, he said carefully, turning toward Victoria. And Miss Whitmore, you're in 1B. It should have ended there. It didn't. Victoria didn't even look at him. She leaned back into the seat, crossing one leg over the other, completely at ease. Well, then your system is wrong, she said, flatly. I told you I always sit here. Ryan hesitated, just a fraction too long. Around them, the cabin held its breath. A businessman in row 1C checked his watch, irritation creeping in. A couple behind them whispered, low and sharp. Someone shifted, angling their phone just enough to capture faces instead of seats. Ryan glanced at the empty seats further down the aisle, calculating, fast. "Ma'am," he said, turning back to Emily, his tone softening into something almost apologetic. "I completely understand this is your assigned seat, but to avoid any delay, would you be open to taking another window seat? We have a few available. I can offer complimentary champagne for the inconvenience." There it was. Not a question, a suggestion wrapped in politeness, a solution that required only one person to give something up. Emily looked at him, really looked this time, young, nervous beneath the surface, trying to keep control, trying to keep things moving. Not malicious, just choosing the easier path. "Why would I move?" she asked. The question landed harder than her tone. Ryan blinked. "Just to keep things smooth for everyone," he said. "We want all our passengers comfortable." "All passengers?" Emily repeated. A flicker crossed his face. He didn't answer that. Victoria let out a small, sharp laugh. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she said, shaking her head. "This is becoming ridiculous. Ryan, just move her. We're holding up the entire cabin." We're. The word felt settle into place. Sides had already been chosen. Ryan's smile thinned, pressure building now. From the cabin, from the clock, from the woman in the seat who spoke like she owned more than just space. "Ma'am," he said again, this time firmer, "it would really help us if you could cooperate." Cooperate. Emily exhaled slowly. The air felt different now, thicker, charged. She could feel the eyes, every single one of them, waiting, judging, some curious, some already decided. She had been here before. Different room, different faces, same moment. The moment where giving in would be easier, quieter, acceptable, and wrong. "No," she said. The word didn't rise, it dropped, solid, final. "I'm not moving," Emily continued, her voice low, steady, impossible to interrupt. "I booked seat 1A. I paid for seat 1A. I will sit in seat 1A. Ryan's expression cracked, just for a second. Victoria's face flushed deep red. The cabin shifted. You could feel it, like something invisible had just snapped. And for the first time since she stepped on the plane, Emily wasn't just being watched. She was being challenged. And somewhere in the silence that followed, the situation stopped being about convenience. It became something else entirely. The air changed the moment she said no. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for everyone to feel it. Ryan straightened, the polite mask slipping into something tighter, more controlled. This was no longer a small inconvenience. This was resistance. And resistance, on a plane full of paying passengers, was a problem. "Ma'am," he said, voice firmer now, "I need you to understand that we're trying to resolve this efficiently." Emily didn't answer right away. She let the silence sit between them, let him feel it, let everyone feel it. "Efficient for who?" she asked. The question didn't sound aggressive. That's what made it land harder. Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it again. His eyes flicked briefly toward Victoria, then back to Emily. The calculation was visible now. Not fairness, not policy. Outcome. Victoria leaned forward, her patience gone. "This is absurd," she snapped. "You're making a scene over nothing. It's just a seat." Emily turned her head slightly, met her eyes fully for the first time. "If it's just a seat," she said, calm and precise, "then you can sit in yours." A ripple moved through the cabin, subtle but undeniable. Someone let out a quiet breath. Another shifted in their seat. A man in the second row gave the smallest nod before catching himself and looking away. Victoria saw it too, and it infuriated her. Her voice sharpened, louder now, designed to pull the room back to her side. "You people always do this," she said, the words slipping out before she could dress them up. "Turn everything into a problem where there isn't one. You people." The phrase hung in the air like something toxic. Ryan froze. A few passengers exchanged glances, not all comfortable, not all disapproving either, just aware. Emily didn't react outwardly, but something inside her locked into place, clean, final. "There is a problem," she said quietly. "You just don't see it." Ryan stepped in quickly, voice rising just enough to regain control. "Okay, let's keep this respectful," he said, though his eyes avoided Emily now. "We don't need this escalating." But it already had. From the front of the cabin, a man cleared his throat loudly, mid-60s, expensive watch, controlled irritation. "Some of us have connections to make. Can we please move this along?" Agreement murmured behind him. Heads nodded, not out of malice, just out of inconvenience. That was the weight of it. Not hate, not always. Just the quiet willingness to let something wrong happen if it meant things stayed easy. Ryan seized it. "Exactly," he said, gesturing slightly toward the cabin. "We have other passengers to consider. I'm asking you one more time, would you be willing to take another seat so we can depart on time?" There it was again. Not what's right, what's easy. Emily felt the pressure now, not from Ryan, not from Victoria, from the room. Dozens of strangers who had already decided the cost of this moment was hers to carry. She inhaled slowly. Her chest rose, fell. Then she spoke. "No." This time the word was quieter, but heavier. Ryan's jaw tightened, the last thread of patience slipping. Victoria leaned back, arms crossed, a cold smile returning to her lips. "Then remove her," she said, as if ordering a drink. "If she doesn't know how to behave, she shouldn't be here." A few people looked down at that. Others didn't. Ryan hesitated. That was the moment. The exact moment where everything could still shift. He knew she was right. He knew the seat was hers. And still, he looked at her like she was the problem. "Ma'am," he said, voice now stripped of warmth, "if you refuse to comply with crew instructions, we may have to escalate this situation." Emily tilted her head slightly. "Escalate," she repeated. Not afraid, not surprised, just confirming. Somewhere behind them, a phone camera lifted higher. Someone whispered, "This is going to blow up." But Emily didn't look at them. She was looking at Ryan, at the choice he was about to make, and the second he made it, this wouldn't just be a disagreement anymore. It would be something no one on that plane could take back.
Ryan's hand hovered near his radio, not pressing it yet, not calling anyone, just hovering. That small hesitation said everything. He knew. He knew the seat was hers. He knew the system confirmed it. He knew if this were about policy, the conversation would already be over. But it wasn't about policy anymore. It was about pressure. Victoria shifted in the seat like she had already won. One leg crossed, fingers resting lightly on the armrest, eyes forward, not even bothering to look at Emily now. Dismissal had become certainty. "Go ahead," she said, softly, almost bored. "Do what you need to do." Do what you need to do. Ryan swallowed. His thumb brushed the edge of the radio. From behind, a woman's voice cut through the tension. "He already said the seat is hers." Heads turned. Row 2, aisle seat. Mid-50s, short grey hair, no jewelry, no performance, just a steady gaze fixed on Ryan. She wasn't loud, but she didn't need to be. Ryan looked at her, surprised. "Ma'am, I understand." "No," she interrupted, calm but firm. "You don't. You verified her ticket. So what exactly are we doing here?" A beat. The cabin shifted again, this time different. Not just curiosity, doubt. A man across the aisle leaned forward slightly, interest sharpening. A younger passenger lowered his phone, listening instead of recording. Even the businessman who had complained earlier stopped checking his watch. The narrative was slipping. Victoria felt it. Her head turned sharply, eyes locking on to the woman who spoke. "This doesn't concern you," she snapped. The woman didn't flinch. "It does if we're delaying a flight over something that's already been confirmed." Ryan's jaw tightened. Control was slipping, and he could feel it in the way the room no longer leaned toward her. So she pushed harder. "She's being disruptive," Victoria said, sharply, louder now, projecting authority. "We all heard it. Refusing crew instructions is a security issue." Security. The word landed like a trigger. Ryan's posture straightened instantly. That was a line he understood, a category he could act within, something that justified escalation. "Yes," he said quickly, seizing it. "This is now a compliance issue." Emily's eyes moved slowly from Victoria to Ryan, and for the first time there was something behind them. Not anger, not fear, recognition. Of a pattern, of a system, of a moment she had seen play out in different rooms, different industries, different faces, just dressed differently here. "You're going to call this non-compliance," she said, quietly. Ryan didn't answer. He didn't have to. From the cockpit, the door opened. Footsteps, measured, heavy, deliberate. Every head in the cabin turned at once. The captain was coming. And just like that, the situation crossed a line it could never uncross.
Captain Daniel Brooks walked down the aisle like a man used to being obeyed before he finished speaking. Mid-50s, silver at the temples, uniform pressed to perfection, the kind of presence that didn't raise its voice because it didn't need to. The cabin straightened around him. Conversations died mid-sentence, phones lowered, but not completely. Eyes tracked his every step. Authority had entered the room. "What's going on?" he asked, voice calm, controlled, carrying just enough weight to cut through everything without effort. Ryan spoke first, quick, clean, framed. "Passenger in 1A refusing to comply with seating adjustment, Captain." Not a lie, not the truth, just enough distortion to make it usable. Captain Brooks's gaze shifted to Emily. He didn't speak right away. He looked. Hoodie, sneakers, stillness. Then to Victoria, composed, polished, expectant. Then back to Emily again. A calculation happened behind his eyes, fast, experienced, dangerous. "Ma'am," he said, voice even, professional, "I need to see your boarding pass." Emily handed it to him without a word. He examined it, slower than Ryan had, more thorough. His thumb pressed lightly against the edge of the paper as if testing something invisible. Seat 1A. He knew what it meant. He also knew what the room expected him to do next. "Miss Whitmore," he said, turning slightly, "your seat is 1B. It should have ended there. Again, it didn't. Victoria leaned back, completely unfazed. "With all due respect, Captain, there's clearly been an error. I've been flying with this airline for years. I always sit here." Always. The word carried entitlement like it was policy. Captain Brooks's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "I understand," he said carefully, "but the system shows—" "The system is wrong," Victoria cut in, sharper now, pressing. "And frankly, this situation is becoming disruptive. Other passengers are uncomfortable." A few heads nodded. Not all, but enough. That was all it took. Captain Brooks felt it. The shift, the pressure, not from policy, from perception. He looked at Emily again, still calm, still unmoving. No raised voice, no aggression, no visible reason to remove her. And yet— "You've been asked to move," he said, tone changing just slightly, less inquiry, more direction. Emily's eyes held his. "No," she said. No hesitation, no explanation, just no. The word landed between them like a line drawn in concrete. Captain Brooks exhaled slowly through his nose. "Ma'am," he said, voice lowering, harder now, "this is not a request anymore. Federal aviation regulations require passengers to comply with crew instructions. If you refuse, we will have to remove you from the aircraft." There it was. Not about the seat, not about right or wrong, about authority. Around them, the cabin tightened again, but this time something was different. The woman in row 2 didn't look away. The man across the aisle leaned forward, watching closely. Someone whispered, "This isn't right." But no one stood. Not yet. Emily tilted her head slightly. "You're going to remove me," she said, almost as if confirming a detail in a contract. "From the seat I paid for?" Captain Brooks didn't answer directly. "I'm asking you to cooperate," he said. Same word, different meaning now. Emily's fingers tightened just slightly around the strap of her bag, the only visible shift in her entire body. Inside, something had already decided. "Then you should do what you need to do," she said. Not defiant, not emotional, final. Captain Brooks held her gaze for a second longer than necessary. Then he nodded once. Decision made. "Ryan," he said without looking away, "call ground security." The words moved through the cabin like a shock wave. Phones came up again, not subtle now, open, recording. A man in the back muttered, "This is going to be everywhere." Victoria leaned back, satisfied again, control restored, order reestablished, or so she thought. Emily didn't move, didn't argue, didn't react. She simply reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone, slowly, deliberately, like someone who had been waiting for this exact moment. The room watched her now, not as a disruption, not as a passenger, but as something else, something they didn't understand yet. And that was when the balance of power, quiet and invisible until now, began to shift. The moment her phone appeared in her hand, the room leaned in without moving. Not physically, but you could feel it. Attention sharpened, breathing slowed, every eye locked onto something small and ordinary that suddenly didn't feel ordinary at all. Ryan noticed it first. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to put that away," he said quickly, stepping closer, voice edged with control that was starting to crack. Emily didn't look at him. Her thumb moved across the screen, smooth, familiar, not rushed. "For the record," she said, her voice calm but carrying, "it's 3:12 in the afternoon, flight GS 710. I'm being asked to leave my assigned first-class seat despite presenting a valid boarding pass." The words landed clean, precise, documented. A murmur rippled through the cabin, louder now, less cautious. "She's recording." "Good, she should. This is wrong." Captain Brooks stepped forward, his tone sharper. "Ma'am, recording crew members without consent is not permitted. You need to stop immediately." Emily finally looked up, directly at him. "I'm documenting an interaction," she said, "not interfering." There was no fear in her voice, no apology, just clarity. That made it worse, because now this wasn't just a situation, it was evidence. Victoria shifted in her seat, irritation flashing across her face. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "Are we really entertaining this? She's turning this into some kind of spectacle." But the spectacle had already begun. 3 rows back, a young man held his phone steady, no longer pretending. Across the aisle, the gray-haired woman sat upright, watching like she'd witnessed something she'd seen before, something she knew didn't end well. Ryan reached for his radio again, gripping it tighter this time. "Security's on the way," he said, almost to himself. Emily lowered her phone slightly, but didn't stop recording. Then, quietly, she made a call. No announcement, no warning, just one tap. She turned slightly away from the crowd, but not enough to hide. "Yeah," she said, voice low, controlled. "I'm at the gate. We have a situation." A pause. Her expression didn't change. "Go ahead without me," she continued. "Start the call. I'll handle this." She ended it. That was it. No explanation, no urgency, just certainty. Captain Brooks watched her closely now. Something in his posture shifted, not fully, but enough. "Who did you just call?" he asked. Emily slid the phone back into her hand, resting it lightly at her side. "Someone who needs to know what's happening," she said. The answer didn't satisfy him. It wasn't supposed to. Victoria let out a sharp laugh. "Oh, please," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "Everyone suddenly has someone important to call when things don't go their way." A few weak chuckles followed, not confident, not unified. The room was no longer fully on her side. That bothered her. Ryan felt it too. Everything was slipping out of clean lines, out of policy, into something messy, visible. He straightened again, trying to regain control. "Ma'am," he said, voice louder now, projecting authority, "you are delaying this flight. If you do not comply, you will be removed from this aircraft immediately." Emily didn't respond, not right away. She looked around instead, slowly, at the passengers, the phones, the faces. Some uncomfortable, some supportive, some still undecided. She saw all of it. And then she spoke. "I'm not the one delaying this flight," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through everything. Ryan froze. Captain Brooks didn't move. Even Victoria didn't interrupt, because for the first time, the statement didn't feel like an argument. It felt like truth. And truth, once spoken out loud, changes the air. Footsteps echoed from the front of the aircraft, heavy, coordinated. Security. The final escalation, the point of no return. Every head turned toward the sound. Emily didn't. She stayed exactly where she was, calm, still, like someone who had already calculated every possible outcome and already chosen hers. The 2 security officers stepped into the cabin with the kind of presence that made people sit up straighter without being told. Dark uniforms, measured movements, eyes trained to scan, not react. The lead officer, Marcus Reed, mid-40s, steady and unreadable, paused just inside the aisle. His partner, a younger woman named Elena Cruz, stood half a step behind him, already assessing the room. Phones tilted higher, whispers sharpened. "This is it. They're really doing this." Captain Brooks gestured towards Emily without turning his head. "That's the passenger," he said, voice clipped, already framing the outcome. Marcus didn't move right away. He looked at Emily, at the boarding pass still in her hand, at Ryan, at Victoria, at the people recording. He had seen situations like this before, enough to know that the loudest version wasn't always the truest one. "Ma'am," Marcus said, stepping forward, voice calm, respectful, "can I see your boarding pass?" Emily handed it to him. No hesitation, no argument, just certainty. Marcus studied it carefully, longer than anyone else had. His eyes flicked to the digital scanner in his hand. He cross-checked, once, twice. Then he looked up. "This shows seat 1A, he said, not to Emily, but to the room. A shift, small but real. Ryan stepped in quickly. "We've already verified that," he said. "The issue is non-compliance. She's refusing to move." Marcus turned his head slightly, just enough to acknowledge him. "Move from her assigned seat?" he asked. The question wasn't loud, but it landed like pressure. Ryan's mouth opened, closed. Victoria jumped in before he could answer. "She's being disruptive," she said sharply. "We've all seen it. She's holding up the flight, arguing with crew, recording everything like it's some kind of performance." Marcus looked at her, really looked this time. Her posture, her tone, the way she spoke as if the conclusion had already been decided. Then he glanced at Elena. A silent exchange. They were reading the same thing. Elena stepped slightly closer to Emily. "Ma'am," she said gently, "would you be willing to step off the aircraft with us so we can sort this out at the gate?" It was reasonable, neutral, professional. The kind of request that didn't assign blame but moved the problem out of sight. The cabin held its breath. This was the moment. Emily looked at Elena, then at Marcus, then slowly around the room again. The phones, the faces, the expectation. She understood what they were asking, not just to step off, to disappear, to take the situation with her so everything else could go back to normal. Easy, quiet, contained. She nodded once. "Okay," she said. A ripple moved through the cabin. Relief. Tension releasing. Victoria leaned back, satisfied again, a small smile returning to her lips. Order restored. Narrative intact. Captain Brooks turned away, already done with it. But Marcus didn't move yet. He handed the boarding pass back to Emily. "Thank you," he said. Their eyes met for a second, and something unspoken passed between them. Recognition, not of who she was, but of what this was. Emily reached down, picked up her bag, smooth, controlled, no rush. As she stepped into the aisle, the space parted around her, not out of respect, out of discomfort. People avoided her eyes now. Not all. The gray-haired woman in row 2 held her gaze, steady, unapologetic. A small nod. Emily returned it. Then she walked, one step at a time, past Victoria, who didn't look at her, past Ryan, who couldn't, past Captain Brooks, who didn't try. The cameras followed her, every movement captured, every second recorded. As she reached the front of the aircraft, her phone buzzed softly in her hand. A message flashed across the screen. She glanced down, just for a second, then locked it again. No reaction, but something in her posture changed, subtle, almost invisible, like a shift beneath the surface. Outside the aircraft door, the terminal waited, open, public, uncontained. And whatever this was about to become, it was no longer going to stay inside that plane.
The moment Emily stepped off the aircraft, the air felt colder. Not physically, different.
Open space, hard floors, bright terminal lights that didn't soften anything. No leather seats, no curated silence, just movement, noise, and eyes that didn't belong to the same contained world she had just left. But the attention followed her. It didn't stay on the plane. It spilled out. People near the gate had already started gathering, not close enough to interfere, close enough to watch. Phones raised, voices low but urgent. That's her. She's the one from the video. It's already online. Marcus and Elena walked beside her, not touching, not pushing, just guiding. Professional, measured. But even Marcus could feel it now. This wasn't a routine removal, not anymore. "Ma'am," he said quietly once they cleared the jet bridge, "we're just going to verify a few things here." Emily nodded. Of course. No resistance, no edge, just control. They stopped near the gate counter. A supervisor was already waiting. Late 40s, sharp posture, name badge, Karen Holt. She reached for the boarding pass before anyone spoke. "Let me see that," she said, brisk, efficient, already assuming authority. Emily handed it over. Karen examined it quickly, then again, slower this time. Her eyes flicked up at Emily, then back down, then toward Marcus. "It checks out," Marcus said simply. Karen pressed her lips together. "That may be," she said, tone tightening, "but the crew reported non-compliance. That's a separate issue." Separate. Convenient. Emily tilted her head slightly. "What non-compliance?" she asked. Karen didn't answer directly. "You were asked to move," she said instead. "From my assigned seat?" Karen's expression hardened. "From a situation that was escalating. It escalated because I was asked to give up my seat." A beat. Karen didn't like that. Around them, the crowd thickened. More phones, more whispers. A teenager angled her screen, live streaming. A businessman typed rapidly into his phone, already crafting a narrative. Marcus noticed. So did Karen. "We're not doing this here," Karen said sharply. "Ma'am, you have two options. You can be rebooked on a later flight, or you can leave the terminal." There it was. Not a solution, a dismissal. Emily looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, there was something different in her eyes. Not calm, not just calm. Precision. "You're asking me to leave," Emily said, voice quiet, steady, after confirming I had a valid first-class ticket. Karen crossed her arms. "I'm asking you to comply with airline policy." Policy. The word hung heavy. Behind them, the aircraft door remained open, passengers still boarding, some stopping, watching. The story was spreading in real time. Emily's phone buzzed again. This time she didn't ignore it. She glanced down. A message, then another, then another. Her screen filled with notifications, names, numbers, alerts stacking faster than they could be read. Marcus noticed the shift. So did Karen. "Is there something you need to take care of?" Karen asked, impatience creeping in. Emily looked up. "No," she said. Then, after a beat, "But there is something you should." Karen frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" Emily didn't answer immediately. She reached into her bag instead. Slow, deliberate. The crowd leaned in again,
even closer now, not just watching, waiting. She pulled out a slim black laptop, set it gently on the counter, opened it. The screen lit up, clean, minimal, not cluttered with apps or distractions, just one interface, one system. Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. Karen's irritation flickered into something else. Uncertainty. Emily rested her fingers lightly on the keyboard. Then she looked up, at Karen, at Marcus, at the growing crowd behind them. And when she spoke, her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "You might want to call your corporate office," she said. A pause, just long enough. "Because in about 5 minutes," Emily added, "this situation isn't going to belong to this gate anymore." Silence. Not confusion. Not yet. Just the moment before everything changes.
Karen let out a short, sharp laugh, the kind people use when something sounds too absurd to take seriously. "You're threatening the airline now," she said, folding her arms tighter, reclaiming her posture, her authority. Emily didn't react to the tone. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, precise, controlled. No wasted motion. "I'm informing you," she said. Marcus shifted slightly beside her, not stepping in, not stepping back, watching. The way people do when instinct tells them something is off, but they don't yet know why. Karen shook her head. "You're not in a position to inform anyone of anything," she said, voice firm, final. "You're a passenger who refused to comply. That's the only position you're in right now." The crowd behind them grew thicker, phones lifted higher. Some whispered, some recorded in silence. The tension didn't break, it stretched. Emily turned the laptop slightly, not enough for everyone to see, just enough for Karen. The screen displayed a dashboard, clean lines, live data, flight paths, system metrics updating in real time, names of airlines, contracts, numbers that didn't look like numbers people casually carried around. Karen leaned forward without realizing it. "What is that?" she asked. Emily met her eyes. "Your routing system," she said. A beat. Karen blinked. "Excuse me?" Emily tapped once. The screen shifted. A list of active integrations appeared. One name sat at the top. Global Skies. Marcus's posture changed. Subtle, but real. Emily's voice stayed calm, measured, unshaken. "The system that predicts your turbulence patterns, optimizes your fuel routes, reduces your delays," she continued. "The one your company signed a multi-year contract for last quarter." Karen's mouth opened slightly, then closed. "That system," Emily said softly, "belongs to my company." Silence didn't fall. It collapsed. Around them, the noise of the terminal faded into something distant, irrelevant. Even the passengers still boarding slowed, watching from the aircraft door. Ryan appeared at the edge of the gate, having followed the situation out. He stopped mid-step. Victoria stood just behind him, her confidence finally cracking, her eyes narrowing as she tried to understand what she was seeing. Emily didn't look at them. She looked at Karen. "My name is Emily Carter," she said, "CEO of Aerodyne Systems." The words didn't rise. They landed, heavy, final, unavoidable. Karen's face drained of color. Marcus exhaled slowly under his breath. Everything rearranged in a single second. Every assumption, every decision, every word that had been spoken. Karen straightened instinctively, her voice catching as she tried to recover. "Miss Carter, we didn't realize." "I know," Emily said. No anger. That made it worse. "I don't look like what you expected," she added. No one spoke, because there was nothing to fix what had already been done. Emily closed the laptop gently. Not dramatic, not rushed, just done. "Your flight is delayed right now," she said, glancing briefly toward the aircraft. "Not because of me, because of decisions made in this moment." Karen swallowed. Emily picked up her bag. "I'll be taking my seat now," she said. Not a request, not a negotiation, a conclusion.
Marcus stepped aside without being asked. Karen didn't move fast enough, then quickly corrected herself, clearing the space. From the plane, all eyes followed as Emily walked back up the jet bridge, step by step, same pace, same calm, but nothing about the room was the same anymore. Ryan lowered his gaze as she passed. Victoria didn't speak, didn't move. For the first time, she looked small. Emily reached seat 1A, stopped, looked at Victoria once. No words, none were needed. Victoria stood, silently, moved to 1B. Emily sat, placed her bag beside her, exhaled. The cabin remained quiet, not out of tension, out of recognition, somewhere deeper than embarrassment, something closer to truth. And sometimes, that's how power really looks. Not loud, not announced, just undeniable when it finally reveals itself. If this story made you feel something, take a second to like, subscribe, and drop 3 words in the comments that described what you just witnessed.